All right, first question comes from Fredericks JK. He asks, fellas, is it just me, or does it seem like practically every team is looking to improve in the trenches this offseason? Do any teams come to mind other than the Eagles, maybe, where O-line and D-line are not priorities? I mean, no, he's true. I mean, everyone is looking.
Hold on. Put that question up again, Harry. I just want to – so do any teams come to mind other than the Eagles, maybe, where offensive line and defensive line are not priorities? So you're saying that the Eagles have it taken care of. Buffalo's got a good group up there.
They want D-line.
But I'm thinking O-line. I'm thinking O-line here. I'm an O-line-centric guy. But, yeah, they need rushers. Philadelphia is the unicorn. You know what I'm saying? And still, they've got Josh Sweat, Zach Bond, Milton Williams on this list that we just went through. So they're going to leak as well. But yeah, offensive line, defensive line will always be where the game is won and lost. You just go take a look at that Super Bowl. And when you don't have to blitz and you can sit back there in coverage and rush the passer with four guys, more often than not, you're going to win the football game.
You know what team is sneakily close in terms of they may not have to address the trenches?
Broncos.
And I think they want to re-sign their guys. Broncos are, but I think even they're probably top four, I'd say. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they've drafted so many guys that now obviously Dan Moore, James Daniels hitting free agency. They're going to want to re-sign Daniels at minimum. But Broderick Jones, Zach Frazier, Troy Fautanu, like they've already invested all guys in the last two drafts, either first or second rounders. You got Mason McCormick, who was a fourth rounder who looked good. You obviously signed Isaac Seumalo. So if you re-sign James Daniels, they may not actually address the trenches in the draft. They have their O-line, so many guys they've just taken, and their D-line, obviously, we know all about that. So they're kind of sneakily there. But if you watch Super Bowl, you know that you can never have enough. They play, your third string tackle, DT plays 20 snaps a game, and you want those 20 snaps to be just as good as your first string DT, because that's when big plays get made. All right. Next question here comes from Badass Warthog. This is a Pro Bowl guard for the Bears. What type of traits do you want from your center?
I want somebody who wrestled. I want somebody who had older siblings. I want somebody who has a low cut in terms of short legs, long upper body. Somebody who can reach out, have some length at the center position. You're going to be playing one-handed. You may as well have a length advantage. And in terms of the intangibles, I want a guy who is unwavering and relentless about his day-to-day routine, which rubs off on the guards he practices next to every day, and the tackles trickle down from that. I think about when I got in the league, Roberto Garza was my center. He was never the most physically gifted guy, but his routine in terms of nutrition and lifting and install and blitz meetings and rehab, physical, treatment that you're getting, it set the table for me and a lot of other young guys in that room to be able to take that throughout our career. But first and foremost, I want a badass. I want a great communicator, and I want a leader of men. That's how you win with offensive lines. Take a look at Jason Kelce, prime example of a guy who was never the biggest or strongest dude, but he's out there using his leverage to his advantage, understanding what the defense is giving him, how to mic and re-mic, how to communicate line calls and be on the same page with your quarterback. Center is a rare position. So there's a lot of things that you want to look for in a center. Can guys get it done without all those traits? Absolutely. But the best ones have the ones that I'm talking about.
All right, next question here from Dorian Finney-Smith. How do the Broncos address the run defense this offseason? That Bills game was brutal. I think you got to re-sign your free agents in the front seven, right? Cody Barton, DJ Jones, because they were probably some of your better run defenders. One more DT, like a third round, maybe nose tackle. That's usually where you find a lot of your nose tackles. Something like a Jamari Caldwell from Oregon or something of that nature, just like some beef in the middle. And the safety, I said, you would like Drew Sanders, your former second rounder from Arkansas, the linebacker, to be healthy. He hasn't been able to stay healthy his career. But I think the safety position replacing PJ Locke would be huge, whether it's Eric Reed, as I mentioned earlier, or the guy I love in the safety class who's in forcer in the run game, Kevin Winston Jr., Penn State. Now people have been talking about him because he tore his ACL very early on this past year, but he was so good as a sophomore that he already declared for the draft as a junior, even though he played 74 snaps this past year, I believe. So he's the guy I would love to add to that defense. Next question comes from Harrington 5424. K Harrington, who do you think is going to shoot up boards after the combine? Great question. I believe we're going to do a combine preview Tuesday next week. But I gave you one for every single position group here. Quarterback Jalen Milroe, as much as quarterbacks can go up the combine. Wide receiver Kyle Williams from Washington State, expecting to run low 4.3s. Running back, I think Caleb Johnson, the Iowa running back. He's already pretty high in boards, but that guy's going to be like 225, and he's going to run low 4.4s to high 4.3s.
Jeez.
Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green, I think a tight end. I think people are going to watch this guy and be like, oh, wow, he actually moves like a wide receiver at almost 240 pounds. I think he's going to run either low 4.5s to high 4.4s. Charles Grant, the William and Mary offensive tackle, will get onto some boards or get on some radars. He's going to run 4.8s, I'd say. The guy's going to test out the gym at off tackle position. Kenneth Grant, the Michigan DT, multiple-time Freaks List guy. I think he was a Freaks List guy for Bruce Willis Freaks List as a true freshman, as a 339-pound defensive tackle. So for sure him. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. What I've heard about what he's going to test is freaky at 282 pounds, like truly unprecedented stuff he might put up at that size.
Jeez.
He'll be in that mix. Nick Martin, the Oklahoma State linebacker, I would expect to test off the charts. The guy standing near him at the Senior Bowl, I've not seen a more tapped out linebacker in terms of he's got a real small frame for a linebacker, but he looks like a bodybuilder. The guy was completely shredded, probably low single digit body fat percentage, just eyeballing it. The guy was Greek god.
He looked hungry, but strong.
Yeah, I expect him to run 4.4s at linebacker. Darian Porter, Iowa State corner, 4.2s is possible. He had the second fastest GPS speed at the Senior Bowl ever. Fastest was Tariq Woolen, and Tariq Woolen ran 4.26. So you do the math there. Safety position, Nick Manwari from South Carolina, 6'2", he's 227, could run the 4.3s.
Jeez.
I mean, he will be, I expect after his combine that he will be in a lot of first round mocks. So there's your every single position group that I expect to shoot up the boards. Many more guys that we'll get to on the combine preview. Next one comes from Gosu. Which position group is more likely to see a draft run in the late first, early second round, running backs or wide receivers? Just from like a numbers game, I think it's wide receivers. But like year on year, historically, what's going to have more compared to your usual class? Because you don't get more than from picks 20 to 50, shall we say. You don't get more than like 3 running backs a year. It's just, there's just not that many that go that highly, right? This year, I think you get like 5 in that range. So from a perspective of what's more rare year on year, it's running backs. In terms of total volume, you'll probably also get 5 or 6 wide receivers. So I'd probably say wide receivers, but like I expect a run on these guys like Amarion Hampton from North Carolina, like Caleb Johnson from Iowa, like Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, that a lot of these guys will be in that second tier after Ashton Genty, and you'll see a lot of them go early in the second round when they usually don't. So last one here comes from Tom Kelly. Says, if Stafford is traded, which QB does McVay want to acquire to develop? I want to hear your thoughts on this one, Kyle, because I just don't think he's going to get traded, truthfully. So,
but they do need Matt Stafford. Don't let him go. I mean, it's as simple as that. And we've got so much tape to prove that Matt Stafford and Sean McVay work really well together. And I want to ride that thing till the wheels fall off. I always thought that when Matt Stafford's done, maybe Sean McVay just takes his ball and go home. So if they do end up without Matt Stafford, is Sean McVay even in the building? because does he want to go through that? Does he want to go through that process of developing young talent? You tell me, who's a guy that you think would pair well with Sean McVay's offense that is not in the National Football League right now?
Well, that's the thing is I don't think they're taking any of these quarterbacks in like the first round. Like that, I just don't see that being the case. And that's why I don't think you're trading Stafford, especially this year, because there's just not an easy replacement. I do think it's about time for them to just be like, hey, and especially in this class that I mentioned, there's a lot of day 2 guys. Hey, let's get someone to develop. It may not work out, but let's get someone to see just what we can do with them. Obviously the 49ers, you've seen what they've done with quarterback development, getting a guy in the 7th round, Brock Purdy. I think Sean McVay is going to want to try his hand. The guy I am most intrigued by, if they were to go to there, Tyler Shuck, Louisville quarterback. He had a massive breakout year. Has been so.
I saw that guy.
His career.
He's a freak. He goes left, throws right. He can
great arm talent.
Off platform freak.
And for 3 straight years, he couldn't stay healthy prior to this. Prior to transferring to Louisville, was at Texas Tech. Had like a shoulder, a broken ankle. He had like everything.
Bad luck.
It may not have been a broken ankle, but he had like a bunch of injuries. Bad luck. Finally healthy this past year at Louisville. Puts out some really good tape and improves in areas like his play from the pocket and under pressure that I was like very surprised by. But he's 25 years old. But definitely a guy who plays similar to a Matt Stafford, similar type of play style. So who better to learn from, right, than Matt Stafford himself? So if you're taking one, 3rd round, Rams are on the clock, Tyler Shuck is the guy I'm looking at.